want you to understand something today. Not only does God have a plan for your life, but God's plan for your life is really, really good. In Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 11, God gives a promise to the children of Israel who were in captivity at that time, who were suffering at that time, and He said to them these encouraging words. Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." God wants to give you hope and a future. God has a good plan for your life. Now, when it says that He wants to prosper you, in the original language, that's the word shalom. And it's talking about the peace of God, the inner prosperity of God. A lot of times we think of prosperity in terms of wealth and health and happiness. God goes deeper than that. A lot of people have health and wealth, but they're not happy because they're not right on the inside with God. When you're fully right with God on the inside, you experience the peace, the prosperity, the shalom of God in your soul, and that radiates out of your life and positions you to receive the blessings that God has in your life that may be material, may be regarding your health, may be relational, but certainly are very real and purposeful and meaningful. God has a good plan for your life, to prosper you, He says, and not to harm you. I used to be afraid of giving my life to God because I was afraid that if I trusted God, God was like an ogre and He would just punish me for all the bad I'd ever done, and God had nothing good for me in the future. I was afraid that God might be a miser and there are blessings that He had for me, but because I had messed up, I would never experience any of His blessings. And in fact, He just wanted to take from me and not give. Then I realized that's not true. God is a good Father who loves to bless His children. Sometimes that does with material things, but most importantly, it has to do with eternal things. When God blesses you on the inside, it makes all the difference in the world. God wants to prosper you and not to harm you. God wants to give you hope and a future. Some of you struggle with the fact that you feel like you're in a situation that's hopeless. Maybe right now you're in a situation that feels hopeless to you. I want you to encourage you that God has a hope and a future for you right now in your situation. When I first got married, I was 22 years old. I was working part-time at a church on the weekends. I was going to graduate school full-time in the daytime. My wife was working, but then she became a student teacher, and so she had to quit her job so she could work teaching without getting paid for it. Well, I figured I'd just get another job and I'd work evenings. The problem was, in my town was going through a recession. There weren't any extra jobs, and no one offered me a job, no matter how many people I asked, to work in the evenings, Monday through Friday. It looked hopeless. It seemed like all this promise that we had when we were younger was all coming to an end. But then in the last minute, God gave me a job. A man that had gone to a church that we had attended was a friend of ours, and he offered me a job working on his custodial staff with 22 other custodians. And the job would pay me minimum wage. It would be from 4 to 10 o'clock every night, Monday through Friday. And I would be cleaning a nasty middle school, dirty bathrooms, a terrible service station. I would be cleaning people's offices. Now, this was disappointing to me because when I graduated from college, I was voted the most likely to succeed in my department. And yet, instead of having an office, instead of having a big paycheck, instead of having a big ministry, I was cleaning offices, I was cleaning bathrooms, making the smallest amount of money I could, and I didn't have a ministry. Well, I was discouraged. So when I started that job, I had a bad attitude. I whined about everything, and I just kind of went through the motions, and one day God spoke to me, and He said, "Dave, your attitude is all wrong. Change your attitude. Dave, it's not the position I give you, it's the person that you are. It's not the position I give you, but the person that you are. Change your attitude. And so I realized that I needed to become a better person in that job. I needed to have a better attitude. I needed to work harder. And I decided out of the 22 custodians, we got graded every week. I would get the top grade every single week. And I did for weeks after weeks after weeks. Well, after doing that for about 2 years, an opportunity came around for me to work at a large Christian university as the campus pastor. My paycheck was twice as big as what I was getting before. Instead of living in a nasty little apartment in the bad part of town, Kathy and I had a brand new housing on campus that we didn't even have to pay for. Instead of cleaning offices, I had an office. And all of my education was paid for. It was a wonderful job. When I got it, I remember feeling like God was saying to me, I would never have given you this job, this good job, if you hadn't had the right attitude, if you hadn't trusted me with the bad job. Maybe you're in a bad situation right now. I'm going to encourage you to do the best you can, because God is not obligated to give you something better until you make the most of what you have. God has a plan for you. It's to prosper you and not to harm you. It's to give you hope and a future, but you got to do your part. Now, I want to encourage you today. When you do your part, God pays attention, and God has things for you in the future that are wonderful. He's been preparing you for what He's been prepared for you, but you got to do your part.